Hi guys, and welcome back to LanWan Builds. For the last few weeks I've been working on a big project which has swallowed up most of my time, and because that was taking ages I decided to take a break from it and have a crack at a newish style. A few days ago I was on Google Earth and found this building called York Gate, just off Regents Park in London. The building was built as part of a complex designed in 1822 by John Nash, called York Gate, which acted as an entrance to Regents Park. When I started on this build, I decided to start with the east side, with this large Venetian-styled window. Usually when I build a building, I take a few creative liberties with it, but this time I tried to make it as accurate as possible. I then tried to build the front arches, but had no idea what the proportions were going to turn out like, so I used the pillars on the front instead as a reference and scaled the rest of the build from there. After I'd built the windows and columns, I just needed to stack them along with World Edit, which saves so much time. There are 9 windows and 8 columns on the front, and interestingly, by having an odd number of windows, the building subconsciously draws your attention to the central one, which shows how both sides are perfectly identical. Now it's time to build the capital, which is right at the top, and because this is a Palladian style building, it's arranged how a pillar would be, with the base being at the bottom, the shaft being in the middle, and the capital right at the top. For the capital of York Gate, it has a semicircle Venetian window and 9 smaller arches set above the windows on the shaft part. Now it was just a matter of copying the wing over onto both sides and blacking out the windows so you can't see into the shell of the building, as there isn't anything inside there at the moment. And now we move on to the sides of the building, where the entrance doesn't have any pillars like the front does, but it has a very classic Georgian side with the same pillar-like Palladian format. It has 3 windows on each floor, with the central first floor window being given a more ornate surround to make it pop against the rest of the building, and the entrance being finished with a pillared porch. You may have noticed that I've been using some quite fancy windows, which is a technique that I saw Aussie using a lot, that's popped up quite a bit on the server, and it gives a great impression of a sash window with a lot of little panes on it. It is only possible to do it on Java, in creative, using a debug stick though. So I'm sorry to all the survival players out there, but you can't do this little trick. Now it's time for the back of the building, which is very plain and simple, but elegant at the same time, like a lot of Georgian buildings are. Unlike the front, there are no pillars, just a large stuccoed wall with a lot of windows on it, with the end ones being blocked out or covered up due to the window tax. Then it's time for a roof, otherwise it would be a very soggy building in the rain if it didn't have a roof. Whereas I followed Nash's building for all the sides. For the roof, it was not as easy, as now it's covered with air cons and other modern machinery that wouldn't have been around when it was built. So because of this, I had to take a few creative liberties. I tried to follow what there was on the building now and imagine what would have been there before, and I came up with this. It's a very simple double-hipped roof without any chimneys, but I may go back and change that as I couldn't decide whether or not to add some in. Back to the front now, with the final thing that needs to be added, and that is the cellar, or basement, however you want to say it. This would have been the servants' quarters originally, which is why it's kept below ground, as the gentry didn't want the servants to be on the same floor as them, so they kept them in the basement. Personally, that seems a bit cruel to me, but it's just the way things were back then. For the cellar, I continued the columns down, with the windows mirroring the ground floor ones, except for a few sash windows added on the wings and a few trees dotted around. And with that, the build is finished. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.